Hey everyone, National Master Stephen Adams here. Today I want to talk to you about an easy, strong reply to the London system. Now, the London system is extremely popular at the novice level and is still seen a fair amount at mid and top level. The system here that I'm going to show you is completely sound, and black should be equal or better in all lines. It's very, very easy to play, and it gives you great chances to play for a win. In addition, it works regardless of whether you prefer to play knight f6 or d5 on move 1 in response to d4. So, without further ado, we can get right into it. So, of course, it starts out with d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5. We can reach the London from this move order. Bishop f4. It's characterized by this early development of the knight and the bishop for white. And then here I would recommend the move c5. So immediately we're attacking at white center. So if we're going to play a move like this, the first question we have to ask, well, why don't they just take the pawn? If they just take the pawn, I would recommend simply going e6 and getting the pawn back. If white tries to be extremely greedy and hang on to it with b4, we can kick out the base with a5. And then, of course, if white takes a5, we can get the c5 pawn. But if they play pawn to c3, we can take on b4, and suddenly we see that this diagonal to the rook has opened up, and this is going to become important because after we attack the pawn again with knight c6, and they go queen b3, we can go knight e4, and suddenly queen f6 is going to come, and this is going to be a huge problem for white. So like knight c3, queen f6, and already black has taken over the initiative completely. So next, we're going to look at, well, why don't they just play e3 in response? Because this is the most popular thing that London system players will do. They'll just try to make this triangle with e3 and c3. So after knight c6, most players will go c3 here. If they go knight b d2, I've seen this move too sometimes. But regardless of whether they go knight b to d2 or c3, our reply is the same. We're going to go queen b6. And queen b6 is especially strong here because now we're attacking the d4 pawn 3 times, and they have it defended twice, so we're threatening their d4 pawn, and we're also threatening the b2 pawn. So we're really, queen b6 comes with a double attack, and after d takes c5, we can take on b2, and now after rook b1, let's say, and queen c3, white has a very weak pawn on c5, and black is just going to win this pawn. I don't think that white has enough compensation. I mean, they have the open file, but we're just going to win this pawn, play e6, develop our dark square bishop and castle, and I don't think that white has enough for the pawn. I would definitely take black here. So let's say that they go c3 and make this sort of London triangle. We're still, as mentioned, we're going queen to b6. And this move is especially strong. Again, we're hitting their b2 pawn, and let's say if they just push it, well, here I would recommend we're just taking on d4, and regardless of how they recapture with either the c pawn or the e pawn, we're just going to go bishop to f5 and play e6 next, and with an equal or better position. So if they respond to queen b6, let's say with queen c2, I would recommend here, since they're stopping us from developing immediately, I would say just play bishop g4 here. And then after knight b to d2, I would say go e6. And again, lastly, if they go queen c1, I would here go bishop f5 and knight b d2 e6. So develop this bishop to f5 if you can. And there's one more response that white can play in response to queen b6, and this is the most popular one, which is to go queen b3. This is the fourth way to protect the pawn. And here I would recommend going c4. And if they trade the queens, I would say we're very happy about this because now we have the open A file. So now we play a move like b5, bishop e2, b4, and now I would say that black is firmly in the driver's seat because we can simply take on c3 now. And after rook a3, white has two very weak pawns. They have a very weak c pawn and a pawn. This position's been reached twice in the master database, rook f to c1. But I think here we can definitely see that black is in an aggressive position while white's more defensive. White has two weak pawns. Eventually, we're going to develop our bishops. We're going to castle as black, and we're going to put this other rook. This rook here is going to go on the a file, and we're just going to be playing against these weak pawns. So If after c4, if they don't trade the queens, instead they go queen to c2, here I would recommend a very nice move, bishop to f5. And now, of course, if they take the bishop on f5, we can take on b2. And here, this is just very strong. We're just winning the rook next move, and there's nothing white can do about it. Black is just completely winning. So after bishop f5, most players here will play queen to c1. But after knight h5, bishop g3, we can just win the bishop pair and play e6. Black is slightly better here. And with the bishop pair, you should have reasonable chances of playing for an advantage. One thing I will note, and I do want to point out, is back on this queen b6 move. They go queen c2. This bishop f5 tactic doesn't quite work because they can take on c5 in between. And actually, white is totally fine here, maybe a little bit better. So if you want to make this bishop f5 tactic work, you have to wait for queen b3 and c4 to have been exchanged. But yeah, that's really all there is to this line. Just to review, we're going d4. Whether you want to play knight f6 or d5 first, it doesn't really matter. And here we're just going c5, knight c6, and queen b6. We're basically playing these first 5 moves against the London system. No matter what move order white chooses, these are the first 5 moves that we're playing. And then if they play queen b6, we're going c4. If they do anything else, any other move, we're developing our light square bishop and then going e6 and having a fine position. And after queen b3, we're going c4. If they retreat to c2, we're playing bishop f5. If they trade the queens, then we're just running our b pawn up and playing against their weak pawns. So, yeah, I hope that helps, and now you have something good to do against the London system. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.